6 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Aquir, and it is time now for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should there be sports boycotts on Saudi and Qatar too? The UK governments have been tough on Russian-owned businesses and sports with links to the Kremlin, notably stopping Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich from selling the club. But teams are still competing in this year's Winter World Cup in Qatar, and that is despite the fact that abuse of migrant workers in the country is well documented, and Saudi Arabia executed 81 men in the biggest mass execution in modern history yesterday. They're also at war with rebels in Yemen and are accused of starving civilians there. Despite this, the Saudi state effectively owns Newcastle Football Club as well. They're obviously playing against Chelsea, so the irony is all too obvious. So is it fair that we should also boycott them too? Well, I'm joined now by sports writer and broadcaster Aidan McGee. Aidan, thank you very much for joining me. It's really good to talk to you. So what is it that Qatar are accused of? I mean, obviously there's a lot of detail about refugees and slavery and all that sort of thing, but what specifically?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you a story. I was actually in Qatar in 2010. I was writing Sam Allardyce's column for the News of the World in those days. And I was sent over there for a week. And my boss at the News of the World said, listen, I'm not having you over there for a week in the Ritz-Carlton writing this column unless you do something else with it. So otherwise it's a bit of a jolly. So I said, go down to the local organising committee where the Qatar World Cup bid is being held and find out what they've got for you in terms of pictures and tell us what kind of World Cup they're going to have. So I went there. They glossed over some of the abuses that kind of people knew about. It wasn't just Qatar at the time either. It was the other Emirates states as well. The accusation being they were importing migrant workers from Pakistan and they were putting them on high scaffolding, not taking due consideration over their safety and welfare. They were sometimes dropping into the sea and no one was even caring. It was that brutal. But they gave me these pictures of what these futuristic stadia were going to look like. And they actually said to me, like, we're just here to familiarise ourselves with the process. They honestly believe, and I believe this, they honestly believe that this was for 10, 12, 14 years down the line. They had no chance of winning. They were never going to get that World Cup. 6 months later, I'm back in England and they get awarded the World Cup. That would not have happened without some subversion along the line. And that's because FIFA put the World Cup in that place and I say made, it's not happened yet, but there's pressure on players now to boycott it. I don't think that decision should be in the hands of players. It should be in the hands of the organisations who made that decision. The other thing about it, Nana, is that when Sepp Blatter and his cohorts made that decision in 2010, or with what happened, whatever went on behind the scenes, they knew that they wouldn't be able to pay for it or be accountable for it for another 12 years. They're not thinking short term, even medium term, it's long term. It's take the money and then run. And that's exactly what they did.
So, in your view, because I know you just said that actually it should be in the hands of people like FIFA to boycott it, though. Yeah. But do you think that perhaps some of the sports players as well should consider that? And people like the BBC who are going there to broadcast there, I mean, they're a state-owned broadcaster and ultimately we are paying for it. And there's the likes of Gary Lineker being paid 1.3 million out of that, but we won't get into that one.
It was more than that, I thought 1.8.
Well, I think it's 1.3 as for the latest reports.
Right.
And he was questioned about it and said, well, he has to go because it's the BBC and they're going and so he's going. I mean, it's just...
It is, but what about the players as well? I mean, you could say, but again, though, it's the players who are being put in this invidious position in some ways because they're the one. Look at the whole furore about taking the knee. It's the players who suffer on the pitch. They're the ones who get the abuse, either whether they take it or whether they don't. So it's down to the organisation. Should the BBC not go? I think there's a case for them staying back. Yeah, there would be. It would make a hell of a stand if they did. But realistically, it's never going to happen.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Where do we go with this then? If big organisations, state-owned organisations won't do it, then there's very little chance that other organisations will do this. But if we take into account Ukraine and also what's going on and the fact that all these big companies like Visa are boycotting these countries and saying, look, we're not going to trade there, is it time that sport started to be a bit braver and followed suit?
Well, yeah, sport could be braver, but what will force their hand is things you're describing, big companies, blue-chip companies like Visa, pulling out. The idea is that the football was meant to go, and other sports are meant to go as far wide around the world. But it's a big world. It's 100 or 200 something countries. There are lots of other places they could have taken. It didn't have to go to Russia. It didn't have to go to the World Cup. Doesn't have to go to one of the Gulf states. But it has already gone there, and it's gone there for one reason only, and that's money. And so I think this decision should be taken much sooner. This decision not to go to Qatar should have been taken in 2010. And that's when, because we know the skullduggery went on, we're all kind of familiar with what happened, and we're paying for it now. And it's the generation of players after those who made that decision who are going to bear the brunt of this, because they're not going to like this. It's also disrupting the season as well. It's caused absolute chaos. That's another reason the clubs don't like it.
But now we know about it, though, and I hear what you're saying, that we should have really preempted it. They shouldn't have even got on the list to be part of it. That's absolutely right. But now we're there, and we have decided to take a stand against, obviously, Russia for their disgusting behaviour in Ukraine, which is completely unforgivable, unacceptable. Absolutely right. I mean, 3 have pulled their sponsorship from Chelsea because they're not happy with it.
Yeah.
So
they're on Chelsea's shirt today.
Well, I mean, but they have. But they have pulled their sponsorship already. So that's already big business making a point here. So where are these organisations? Why is FIFA, UEFA, and all these organisations not doing something? And also, if the players refuse to play, then that might send a...
Well, it would send a huge message. I don't think the players are going to do that, but they're going to face a lot of accusations of hypocrisy, given some of the virtual signalling that the England team got involved with at the rearranged Euros last summer. They've been very quiet on. Or they said a few months ago they're going to sit down and have a discussion with the organisers of the Qatar World Cup and the FA to see if they can do anything to take a stand. But ultimately, they're going to be on that pitch and they're going to be competing. That's going to happen if, as you say, these big companies pull out. Then I think that would have happened already. To be honest with you, we've known there's going to be a World Cup in Qatar for the last 12 years. So I think that would have happened. If it does happen, then they've got a decision to make. But again, it'll be money dictating, as it always does.
And very briefly, because we've got about a minute left, why is it that Abramovich is not allowed to own Chelsea? Yet, of course, we've got the Saudi state that can own Newcastle.
That's $1 million question. That's one you'd have to ask the Premier League, because they made their bed. They're the ones who got involved in politics. I've always said that politics and sport is inextricably linked, but sport doesn't help itself, particularly the Premier League. They're the ones who invite fraternisation with Black Lives Matter, with climate change, with rainbow laces, with all manner of other political causes. You should try and keep it out of that sphere as much as you possibly can, but they're not doing that. And by doing that, you make your bed when the Saudi train comes over the hill and tries to buy Newcastle United and succeeds in doing so with their record on human rights, particularly against the LGBTQ plus community. It's the juxtaposition they're going to have to deal with now, and it's in the room, and they played Chelsea today, and it was crystallised on the pitch there, and everyone's talking about it, and there's going to be decisions to be made in future. It's going to make them embarrassing. How can they go back there to St James's Park with the Rainbow Laces campaign in the face of what's gone on there and who their owners are? It's going to be very difficult for them.
Yeah, it's difficult, and actually even for us as people buying our iPhones and our this and our that, we also have to start to take a look at our consciences as well.
Yeah, I know. You've been here a long time, though.
Aidan, it's really good to talk to you. Thank you so much. That's Aidan McGee. Well, he's a sports writer and a broadcaster. Let's have a quick look at what you've been saying. Dave says, yes, without a doubt, the World Cup should never, ever have been awarded to Qatar. Yanis says, absolutely, sport is a good way to send a clear message to the world about what's right and what's wrong. Tammy says that the cost of living is going up, and there's a terrible war. So maybe give people something to look forward to. Cancelling football, which billions of people across the world love, will just make them more miserable. You do have a point there, but can't be much fun in a war either. Listen, thank you for your views. Keep them coming. You're with me. I'm Nana Akweer. This is GB News on TV, online, and on digital radio. Still to come, we'll continue with our Great British Debate. I'm asking, should there be sports boycotts on Saudi and Qatar as well? You'll hear the thoughts from my panel, Daily Mail's Andrew Pearce and broadcaster Danny Kelly. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.